So we're here to solve this easy as LITS variation by Takeya Saikachi. The title is S with 9 S's, and that's for the 9 outside clues. And one of the things that this theme looks like it's going to do is force a lot of regions to always take an S shape. For instance, this region down here, one of these center cells in this column will always be filled by any tetromino that goes in that region. So this, what I'm coloring in blue, will always have an S in it. This region in the lower right corner will always have an S based on that outside clue. Even this region that's got just 7 cells will always take a cell in this, what looks to be the 6th row of the grid. So this is another S shape. And this top region, you could put in an I, but the I would then see these outside clues and be invalid. So where we can only take 3 of these 4 cells, we'll always take a cell that sees 1 of these outside clues. So at the start of the puzzle, I know that these 4 regions in blue must be S shapes. It lets me come in with a different color and say that this lower left corner region then cannot be an S. If it were an S, it can't cross into this blue region or into this blue region because a LITS puzzle doesn't allow the same shape to see across those boundaries. And so it absolutely forces this region to dodge the S clue and take the remaining 4 cells. And that gets us to here. We haven't marked this in yet, but one thing to even note about these regions is when we know they take an S shape, not all the cells can be part of an S. For instance, in this lower right region, this corner cell can't be part of an S. An S using that cell would look like this or like this and extend outside the region. So where we know that this is not part of an S, the S shape that's coming through that region takes these 3 cells and one of the remaining ones. It's also the same case that this cell can't be part of an S, and so we can mark some of these things in to help ourselves. Coming back though, after placing this L, like what most people will see next is that you now can't take both of these cells in this blue region, and this blue region will always take an S shape, so it's going to need to have 2 cells in this lower row shaded. So if it can't take this one with that one, these 2 get shaded. These 2 get shaded to form the S clue, and that looks fine in the grid. Notice that marks this as unusable. And now we have a case where we couldn't color this in the start of the puzzle because there were valid I's that used all these cells. This region now for sure needs an S. It can only take as many as 3 cells in this row, so it would reach up and have a cell that sees this S. It can only take 3 in this row, would have a cell that reaches down and sees that S. And so if those are both blue regions, and if there is an S down below, these cells can't be used because an S can't touch an S. These regions can't connect, and so we have to come through this region, and this region cannot take an S clue in doing that because this blue has to come over to something that's not an S, this blue has to come over to something that's not an S. We actually have some pretty forced connectivity coming through. So we've got these 6 cells in yellow, these 2 are always shaded. We need to get a valid S shape that's going to work here, and that will always take 1 of these cells in this first column, 2 in the middle, and 1 more. And also we need a valid S shape that touches over here, and I'll take 1 of these cells, then 2, and then 1 more. And so the actual way to have this fill in, where these have 2 S's that dodge each other, looks like this. This has to stay connected, so we put in this L shape. We'll see that we've actually fulfilled these clues, so I'll just mark them off now. These tetrominos here, this S and this L, must connect through this cell and connect through this cell. This S group up top has to connect through this cell, and in seeing that, we now intercept this S clue, so the only S we can put in the grid, we've got to put in the grid. Only 1 of these 2 cells gets used. Coming back to then the main thinking, this upper right region must cross to stay connected through this channel, and so it now sees that S clue and is forced to be an S. This coming down here, these 2 cells have to get connected to the rest of the grid, and these cells are too far away from these first 2 to go, and so the only connection point I see is through this channel. Having marked off this cell, if you hadn't seen this yet in the grid, this lower right corner not using the cell, you'd otherwise might see you could form an I here. But marking this cell off, connection has to come through this region through an L. That comes over to this S. We've got an S and an L near a tetromino that can't be that and can't be an I, so the only shape left is a T. Still for connectivity, we've got to take this cell. And we've got a T, we've got an S shape. This can't be an I, so this must be an L in this region. So we'll put that in. And we see that the only remaining cell to finish and stay connected is this one for the last S. So Really brilliant theme. It forced us to think about regions that have S's, to then identify regions that can't have S's and use that logic to get all the way through the end. Connectivity also helped in different parts, particularly when we had this upper left filled in. The connection through this center of the grid led to the finish. So I hope you got something out of this puzzle, and thanks again to Takeya for writing the puzzle. We'll see you again soon.